What if the emptiness you feel right now isn't emptiness at all, but a doorway? Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night with the strange sensation that your life doesn't quite belong to you anymore? As if the room is the same, the walls unchanged, but you no longer fit inside your own skin. Imagine standing in an ancient library, surrounded by shelves that once held every chapter of your story. Some of the books are worn, the pages nearly falling apart from being read too many times. Others are closed tightly, their stories finished, but in your hands you hold a blank book. Its pages are untouched, waiting for ink, and yet no words come. You're caught in the stillness between the book that has ended and the one that has not yet begun. That space can feel unbearable. Your old passions dissolve into silence. The conversations that once fueled you now echo hollow. Even your reflection in the mirror seems to whisper, "This is not who you are anymore." It feels like confusion, like failure, like a collapse. But what if it's not collapse at all? What if it's the sacred pause before a new frequency takes form? Throughout history, mystics have spoken of this moment, the void, the invisible cocoon where transformation brews in silence. Caterpillars dissolve into formless chaos before wings appear. Seeds break apart underground before they pierce the soil. And the soul, too, must endure this space of unraveling before the next chapter writes itself. You may think you're stuck, but what if the very dissonance shaking your heart is proof that you're aligning with a reality your mind cannot yet see? What if the friction is not an ending, but a signal that the old self is falling away so the new one can emerge? The question is not whether you're lost, but whether you're willing to recognize this hidden stage for what it truly is. Because inside the silence lies the key to understanding why your life feels out of sync and what it means for the next evolution of your soul. And that's where the real mystery begins. Have you ever noticed how life sometimes whispers to you in ways that no one else seems to hear? You're standing in line at the grocery store, distracted, weighed down by thoughts, and suddenly your eyes fall on the receipt total, 1111. You laugh nervously, tell yourself it's just numbers. But why does it keep happening? On the clock, on the license plate of the car in front of you, in the page number of the book you picked up. The same sequence repeats like a rhythm beneath the noise of your life. Or perhaps it comes at night. The same dream returns over and over. You're walking down a hallway, doors stretching endlessly on each side. You reach for one, but your hand passes through the knob like smoke. You wake up sweating, unsettled, heart pounding. You try to brush it off as meaningless, but deep down, something in you knows. It's not just a dream, it's a message. There are days when your body becomes part of this strange language. A sudden heaviness in your chest, a pressure in your temples, a vibration under your skin. Doctors call it stress, fatigue, anxiety, yet no medical test explains why it arrives, only when you're standing at certain crossroads in your life, when you're about to make a choice, when something inside you feels unfinished, when the air around you feels charged, electric, like it's carrying words you can't quite hear. And then there are the moments of inexplicable intuition. You pick up the phone just before it rings, already knowing who's calling. You hesitate before stepping into a room and then later discover an argument broke out inside, one you instinctively avoided. A friend confesses something heavy, and you realize you felt their sadness hours before they even spoke. Most people dismiss these things as coincidences, as tricks of the mind. But what if they are not? What if these patterns, these repeated symbols, are a hidden script being written into your life? A code, subtle but precise, that appears when you're outgrowing the life you thought you belonged to. Because isn't it strange how these signs tend to multiply when you feel most disconnected? When your work feels hollow, when your conversations lack depth, when you lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, asking quietly, "Is this all there is?" In those moments, the Universe seems to lean closer, to knock louder. Dreams intensify, numbers align. Your body speaks in whispers of tension and release. The world outside looks ordinary, but beneath it hums a secret language, waiting to be deciphered. This is the pain of the in-between. You feel torn between what you can explain and what you cannot ignore, between the logic of the mind that insists it's just random, and the pull of the soul that whispers, pay attention. That tension eats at you. It makes you restless, suspicious of your own senses, wondering if you're imagining things or if the world itself is conspiring to push you towards something unseen. You've probably tried to quiet it, to drown it out with noise, more work, more distractions, more scrolling, more conversations about nothing. Yet the silence always returns, heavier than before, like a tide that won't stop rising. And every time it does, it leaves you with the same unsettled thought. Something is happening here. Something is speaking to me. I just don't know how to understand it. It is in these very moments that a doorway begins to reveal itself. Not a doorway made of wood or stone, but one made of symbols, rhythms, sensations, and dreams. A doorway into the hidden architecture of your life. The question is, are these strange patterns merely echoes of your imagination, or are they the fingerprints of a deeper intelligence arranging your path? And if they are messages, then what are they trying to tell you? What if the signs you keep seeing are not random accidents, but the oldest language in existence? Before alphabets, before books, before doctrines were carved in stone, the divine spoke in patterns. Repetition, rhythm, and hidden alignment have always been the signature of spirit. The first great secret is this: numbers are not mathematics, they are messages. When the ancients looked to the heavens, they didn't see chaos. They saw order, symmetry, balance. The universe itself was built on vibration and proportion. The Pythagoreans believed numbers were sacred codes, carrying frequencies that shaped reality. In the Bible, numbers were never just quantities. They were revelations. 40 days in the desert, 12 tribes of Israel, 7 seals, 3 denials, 1 resurrection. Each number marked a turning point, a transformation. To the untrained eye, these were just counts, but to those who listened, they were signals that heaven was arranging something on earth. Now think about your own life. The clock strikes 11:11 when you are questioning your path. A bill arrives, and the total ends in 3:33, just after you prayed for guidance. You wake in the middle of the night at 4:44, your heart racing, though nothing around you has changed. These are not coincidences. They are what mystics call synchronicities, precise intersections between your frequency and the greater field of creation. Why numbers? Because numbers are the most universal language. They bypass culture, religion, even spoken words. Whether you live in New York or a remote village, 111 means the same thing to your soul. Alignment is near. 3T3 whispers of protection, unseen presence at your side. 777 signals that a cycle is closing, that destiny is unfolding in ways you cannot yet see. These repeating patterns are like holy fingerprints pressed into the fabric of your days. Let me take you deeper. The Hebrew mystics believed that numbers carried divine vibrations. Every letter of their alphabet corresponded to a number, and every number carried a hidden truth. To read scripture without decoding numbers was like staring at the surface of the ocean while ignoring the treasures in its depths. That's why the book of Revelation is filled with numbers, not to confuse, but to awaken those with eyes to see. Here is wisdom, it says, let him that hath understanding count. Wisdom has always been encoded, waiting for the attentive heart. And yet, these signs aren't just ancient relics. They touch your everyday life. Imagine a woman feeling lost after the end of a relationship. Every morning she drives to work, her mind clouded with grief. Yet every day, without fail, the same car passes her with the license plate ending in 222. She doesn't know why, but the repetition begins to comfort her. She later learns that 222 is the frequency of balance, of new beginnings, of being held by the unseen. Suddenly, the pain doesn't feel meaningless. It feels like preparation. Or picture a man wrestling with a decision, whether to leave a job that no longer fulfills him. As he scrolls his phone late at night, unsure and anxious, the screen freezes at 5:55. He brushes it off, but the next day, while signing a receipt at lunch, he sees it again, 5:55. By the end of the week, it's on a billboard. The message, 555, is the vibration of change. Heaven is echoing back his unspoken thoughts, telling him he is not imagining the need for transformation. This is the hidden truth. The field around you, the same field quantum physicists now admit holds infinite potential, is alive with response. When your soul is on the verge of shedding its old skin, when you are between chapters, the field arranges patterns to reassure you. It cannot shout with a human voice, but it can whisper in code, through numbers, through repetition, through synchronicities so persistent you can no longer deny them. But here's the challenge. Most people ignore it. They tell themselves it's silly, that they are imagining things. Yet isn't it strange how the same numbers appear right when you need them most? Isn't it stranger still that the very moments of your deepest doubt are when the patterns are loudest? The mind dismisses, but the soul remembers. And once you allow yourself to remember, you realize you are not abandoned in the silence. You are being guided, step by invisible step. Think about the story of Moses in the wilderness. He saw a bush burning without being consumed. To anyone else, it might have looked like a mirage, a coincidence, a trick of the desert. But Moses turned aside to see. And that moment, that willingness to pay attention, opened the space for God to speak. The sign was not the fire. The sign was the invitation. The same is true with the patterns in your life. They are not just numbers. They are burning bushes waiting for you to notice. And once you notice, everything changes. You begin to see the hidden order beneath the chaos, the sacred code beneath the ordinary. You are no longer just drifting. You are listening. You are aligning. And the field, that vast quantum sea where all realities exist, responds not to your effort, but to your attention. So the first secret is simple but powerful. The universe speaks to you in signs, and numbers are its alphabet. Pay attention to what repeats. It is not mocking you, it is preparing you. It is not coincidence, it is confirmation. If this truth is stirring something inside you, let this be your sign to go deeper. Give this video a like, not for me, but as a way of anchoring your own resonance, marking that you have heard the call, and subscribe to this channel to become part of this circle, this community of souls who are not content with surface answers, but who long for the hidden wisdom beneath. Because what we are uncovering here is not common knowledge. It is the secret language of transformation. But numbers are only the beginning. There is a deeper signal, one that doesn't just appear outside of you, but vibrates within your very body. And it is in that hidden signal that the next mystery is waiting to be revealed. There was a woman named Claire. She lived an ordinary life in a quiet town. The kind of life that looks perfect from the outside. A steady job at the bank, a tidy house with white shutters, a husband who provided stability, and 2 children who gave her a sense of purpose. But inside, Claire carried a silence so heavy it pressed against her chest like invisible stone. She would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly above her, her heart whispering a question she could never bring herself to say aloud. Is this really all there is? The unease grew quietly at first, subtle, almost ignorable. It came as a hollowness in conversations, as if her words floated on the surface of life without ever touching the depths. At work, the numbers on her spreadsheets blurred. At church, her prayers felt like empty echoes. She told herself she was tired, that everyone goes through seasons of disconnection, but deep down, she knew something was stirring. And then the signs began. The first came on an ordinary morning as she prepared breakfast for her children. She glanced at the microwave clock, 7:07. She shrugged it off. But that afternoon, on her way to pick up her son from school, she noticed the odometer on her car, 7:07:07. By evening, the receipt at the grocery store read $70. The pattern was so precise, so relentless, that her rational mind faltered. Why this number? Why now? That night, she dreamed of a long corridor lined with closed doors. She walked barefoot across the cold tiles, hearing only the faint echo of her steps. At the far end stood a single door carved with the number 7. As she reached for it, she woke with her heart racing, tears streaming down her cheeks. She didn't know why she was crying, only that the dream carried the weight of truth. Days turned into weeks, and the signs grew louder. When she prayed for clarity, the answer came not in words but in patterns. The same number repeating, the same tugging in her chest, the same sense that something was calling her out of her old life. She began to research, hesitantly at first. She discovered that in biblical symbolism, the number 7 represented completion, the end of a cycle, the approach of divine fulfillment. Suddenly, her confusion took on shape. Perhaps what she thought was collapse was actually preparation. Perhaps the silence she hated was the threshold of renewal. The more she paid attention, the more the universe seemed to respond. One afternoon, while she was walking through the park, she passed an old man sitting on a bench feeding birds. He looked at her, almost as if he had been waiting, and said gently, "You're not lost. You're being emptied so something new can be poured in." She froze, stunned. She had never spoken to him, never shared her secret grief, yet his words pierced her like light through a window. When she turned back a moment later, he was gone. Claire began to see her life differently. The job that had felt suffocating became a temporary chapter, not a prison. The restlessness in her heart was no longer proof of failure, but of growth. She started writing again, something she hadn't done since her teenage years, and with every page, she felt as though her soul was stretching new wings. Her relationship shifted too. Instead of clinging to conversations that left her hollow, she began to seek out the people who nourished her spirit. But what truly changed her was not external. It was the way she listened. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that the invisible whispers had meaning. That the repeating numbers, the dreams, the strange encounters were not madness but messages. Each sign became a thread, weaving her old confusion into a tapestry of hidden order. And in that order, she found hope. The world outside didn't change overnight. Her kitchen still filled with the same morning noise, her office still hummed with the same fluorescent lights, but inside she carried a secret fire. Every time she saw those numbers, she no longer panicked. She whispered instead, "I hear you. I trust you." And that trust transformed her. It didn't erase the pain, but it gave her a compass in the dark. It reminded her that being between chapters was not a punishment, but a passage. That the void, as unbearable as it felt, was the womb of something new. Now let me ask you, have you ever lived something like this? A dream that returned again and again until you could no longer ignore it. A number that stalked you across clocks, receipts, and screens. A sense in your body that the world was trying to speak in a language beyond words. If you have, I want you to share it. Write your story in the comments below. Tell me about the sign that has followed you, the whisper you couldn't explain, the moment you realized life was trying to get your attention. I read them, every single one. And in our next journey, I may even mention your story, bringing your voice into this circle, this community of seekers who are learning to see beyond the surface. Because the signs are never random, they are chosen. And the fact that you've experienced them means you too are being prepared for something larger than you can imagine. But Claire's story was only the beginning, because what came next for her, and what may already be unfolding for you, was a shift so profound it could only be described as the unraveling of an old identity. The question is, how do you recognize when that unraveling has begun? There is a moment in every seeker's journey when the numbers fade into the background and another, even stranger phenomenon begins to take shape. It's subtle at first, like a thread tugging at the edge of your awareness, but once you notice it, you can't unsee it. The second great sign is not written on clocks or receipts. It is written inside your own body. The ancients called it the inner compass. Mystics spoke of it as the whisper of the soul, and modern science hints at it through the nervous system and the electromagnetic field of the heart. It reveals itself through physical sensations that arrive without logical explanation. The sudden chill running down your spine when you step into a room, the heaviness pressing on your chest when someone is hiding the truth, the warmth in your belly when an unseen alignment is about to unfold. This is the secret most people miss. Your body is a receiver of spiritual signals. Numbers speak from the outside in, but sensations speak from the inside out. Think about the times you've had goosebumps during a conversation, even though the air wasn't cold. Or the moments when a lump formed in your throat while listening to a song that echoed something you didn't even know you were carrying. Have you ever felt your stomach twist before making a decision, only to later discover that your body had sensed what your mind couldn't see? These are not random reactions. They are encrypted messages. Your body's way of translating the frequency of your soul. Scripture too acknowledges this hidden truth. In the Psalms, it is written, "My heart instructs me in the night seasons." Notice, not the mind, not the logic, but the heart. Ancient Christians spoke of the peace that surpasses understanding, a feeling, not an argument, that guides the faithful when reason cannot. Even Christ himself often said, "Let him who has ears to hear, hear." But the hearing he spoke of wasn't only with the ears, it was with the spirit, the heart, the body itself. The technique then is simple but life-altering. Learn to scan your inner signals. Here's how. Pause. Before making a choice, before answering that message, before stepping into that meeting, take a single deep breath. Silence the mental chatter, if only for a moment. Notice the body. Pay attention to the subtle. Does your chest expand or tighten? Do your shoulders relax or tense? Do you feel lighter or heavier? Interpret with honesty. Lightness is alignment. Heaviness is resistance. Warmth is confirmation. Coldness is warning. These are not rules carved in stone, but patterns your body repeats consistently once you begin to notice them. Record the signals. Keep a small journal. Each time you sense one of these reactions, write it down. Over time, you'll see a language forming, unique to you, but rooted in universal truth. This practice may feel awkward at first, but with repetition, it becomes second nature. You will begin to realize that your body was never betraying you. It was always guiding you. The real betrayal was ignoring its voice. Consider this example. A young man named David was offered a high-paying job in another city. On paper, it was perfect. More money, more prestige, more opportunity. His mind screamed, "Say yes!" But every time he thought of signing the contract, his chest grew heavy, his breath shallow. He woke up each night with clenched fists and a racing heart. Finally, he paid attention. He declined the offer. Months later, the company collapsed in scandal. By listening to his inner signals, David had spared himself years of turmoil. Or think of Maria, a single mother struggling with loneliness. One evening, she met a man who seemed kind, charming, attentive. But each time he touched her hand, Her stomach tightened. Her friends told her she was overthinking, that she should give him a chance, but she trusted her body. She ended the relationship quickly. Later, she discovered that he had a long history of manipulation and abuse. Her body had known long before her mind could confirm it. This is the power of the second secret. When you allow your body to become a sacred instrument, you stop chasing external proof and start embodying internal truth. The universe doesn't just send messages through the skies or through numbers. It sends them through the temple of your very flesh. And here's the most liberating part. Anyone can do this. You don't need to be a mystic in a monastery or a prophet on a mountaintop. You already carry the compass inside you. You only need to listen. Tonight, when you lie down to sleep, try this practice. Place your hand over your heart, close your eyes and ask silently, what truth am I resisting? What alignment am I ready for? Then notice what your body does. Does your chest soften or constrict? Do tears form in your eyes, or does calmness spread through you? This is your answer. It may not come in words, but it will come in frequency, in sensation, in energy. And if you dare to trust it, your life will begin to unfold in ways your mind could never calculate. The first secret, numbers, speaks through the external world, arranging patterns outside of you. The second secret, body signals, speaks from within, carving clarity into your very bones. Together, they form a dialogue between the universe and your soul, reminding you that you are never truly without guidance. But there is a third secret, one so profound, so deeply hidden, that very few ever glimpse it. It is not written in numbers, nor is it felt in the body. It emerges from a place far older, far more mysterious. And when you discover it, it changes not only how you see signs, but how you see reality itself. Are you ready to know what almost no one dares to speak about? There is a sign deeper than numbers and more intimate than the whispers of your body. It is the one that almost no one dares to name because it does not appear outside of you. It becomes you. The greatest sign of all is when your very identity begins to dissolve. When the you once knew, the roles you once clung to, the mask you once wore, start to slip like sand through your fingers. It begins in silence. You notice that the conversations you once enjoyed now feel empty, not because the words have changed, but because you have. The ambitions that once set your heart on fire no longer ignite anything within you. Even your own reflection feels strange, as if you are looking into the eyes of someone who is leaving, someone who has already walked beyond the borders of who you used to be. This unraveling terrifies the mind. It clings, it fights, it screams for proof that you are not vanishing into nothing. But here lies the third great secret. The deepest sign of transformation is the death of the old self. It is not punishment, it is prophecy. Every spiritual tradition speaks of it. The Apostle Paul said, "I die daily." The mystics of the desert spoke of the dark night of the soul, when all that was familiar disappears. In quantum physics, particles collapse into new forms only after they dissolve their previous state. Death and rebirth are not separate events. They are the same doorway, seen from different sides. When you are in this stage, you feel stripped bare. Your titles don't matter. Your accomplishments don't comfort you. Your possessions lose their shine. What remains is essence, raw, unprotected, luminous. The world may call it emptiness, but heaven calls it the womb of creation. It is here, in this sacred void, that the most powerful signal emerges, a strange, paradoxical peace that floods you, even in the absence of answers. You begin to notice it in small ways. The problem that used to paralyze you no longer has the same weight. The betrayal that once broke you no longer cuts as deeply. The loss that left you hollow now feels like a space where something new can be born. This peace is not logical. It surpasses understanding. It is the signature of God's presence within you. And here is the mystery. This sign is not given to a chosen few. It is available to anyone who dares to release the illusion of control, anyone who surrenders the old frequency long enough to embody the new. It does not require wealth, status, or recognition. It requires only willingness. At this point in the journey, I want to pause for something important. If these words are stirring something inside you, if you feel seen, understood, or perhaps even exposed, I ask you to do one simple thing: subscribe to this channel and like this video. Not as a transaction, not because algorithms demand it, but because this space, this community, exists only through resonance. There is no profit behind these words. This work is done with passion, with devotion, with the desire to remind you of truths the world has forgotten. Every time you join, every time you engage, you strengthen this circle of seekers, this hidden fellowship that chooses to see what others ignore. Now let us return to the revelation. The third and deepest sign, the unraveling of identity, is terrifying because it feels like loss. But what you are losing is not yourself. You are losing the cage. You are losing the scaffolding. You are losing the illusions that once convinced you that survival was the same as living. What is being born in its place is your essence, your eternal self, the version of you that is not bound by fear, by shame, by the demands of a world addicted to noise. This is why mystics called it the new birth. This is why Jesus told Nicodemus, "Unless a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God." He was not speaking only of rituals or doctrines. He was pointing to the experience you are now tasting, the dissolution of the old self, so that the truer self can emerge. When you feel this shift, you may weep without reason. You may feel both fragile and powerful at the same time. You may even mourn the version of yourself you are leaving behind, like saying farewell to a familiar friend. But in that mourning, something radiant begins to stir. A subtle joy, a quiet strength, a knowing that you are not ending, you are beginning. And this is the climax of the spiritual journey, when you realize the greatest sign was never outside of you. It was never in numbers, never in symbols, never even in sensations. Those were stepping stones, guiding lights. The greatest sign is when you yourself become the message. When your very being vibrates with coherence, when your presence radiates a frequency that others feel before you speak. When you stop chasing signs because you are the sign. But here lies the final mystery. Once you arrive at this stage, a responsibility awakens. It is no longer enough to see. You are called to live differently, to embody the truth that has revealed itself in you. And how you carry this truth will determine whether your transformation stabilizes or whether the old self finds its way back in disguise. The unraveling has begun. The new self is stirring. But what must you do to hold it, to anchor it, to keep this flame alive when the winds of the world blow against it? That is the last secret waiting to be revealed. There comes a moment, after the signs have spoken and the soul has listened, when everything falls into place. Not with thunder, not with lightning, but with a quiet clarity that feels like the rising of the sun after a long night. You realize that none of it, the repeating numbers, the strange dreams, the sudden sensations in your body, the unraveling of your old self, was ever random. They were not fragments of coincidence scattered across your days. They were a map guiding you toward the awakening of your own consciousness. Look back for a moment. How many times have you dismissed what you felt as just stress, just imagination, just coincidence? And yet, here you are, hearing these words, recognizing your story woven through them. It means you were never abandoned in your confusion. The whispers were always there, the patterns were always waiting, the divine has always been speaking, patiently, quietly, relentlessly. The truth is that the signs were never meant to give you fear. They were meant to remind you of who you are, a soul in transition, a traveler between chapters, a being carrying the spark of eternity in a fragile human body. And every time you paused to notice, every time you lifted your eyes from the noise of life to the rhythm beneath it, you were stepping closer to the hidden reality that lies beyond appearances. This is the great invitation, to stop treating your discomfort as failure, to stop labeling your silence as emptiness, and to begin seeing it all as sacred preparation. You are not broken, you are not lost, you are becoming. And becoming is not easy. It is not neat or predictable. It requires courage to let go of what no longer fits, faith to walk through the unknown, and trust to believe that something greater is shaping you from within. But in this process, you are never alone. Others have walked this path. They have felt the same strange dreams, the same shivers of intuition, the same dissolving of old identities, and now you are part of that lineage. That is why this community exists. Not as entertainment, not as noise among millions of voices, but as a circle, a gathering place for those who dare to see what others ignore. Every like, every subscription, every comment here is not just a number. It is a signal, a resonance, a way of saying, I too am awake. Ooh. So here is my invitation to you. If these words have touched you, if you have felt the signs stirring in your own life, then declare it. Write your name and your city in the comments below, not just as information, but as a sacred act of belonging. When you do, I will read it, and in the next video, your name and your place in the world may be spoken aloud as part of this circle. Imagine hearing your own name, carried like a prayer across thousands of hearts, a reminder that you are seen, that you matter, that you are part of something larger than yourself. And if you have not yet done so, I ask you, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join this community. Not because I seek numbers, but because this work is done out of passion, not profit. Each gesture of support is a seed of energy, a way of keeping this fire alive so that more souls can find their way to the truth they've been seeking in silence. You are standing at the threshold of something greater. The signs you've seen are not the end of the story. They are the beginning, a reminder that the universe is not distant but speaking, that God is not silent but guiding, that your soul is not lost but awakening. And if all of this has reached you, if your heart feels the quiet tremor of recognition, then know this: the chapter you've been waiting for is closer than you think. The signs have brought you here. The journey is unfolding, and what lies ahead will not only confirm what you felt, it will reveal more than you ever dared to imagine. Because sometimes the greatest revelation is not in the answers we receive, but in the questions that still linger, glowing like embers in the night. And those embers are calling you toward what is yet to come.